Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope my voice is clearly audible. You can simply raise your hands to confirm this. Great. Great. All right. So, guys, we'll be starting our technical discussions from today. Right. We'll be discussing the uh, descriptive statistics. Right. And this is your first technical section. Let me just walk you through one more time through the topics. Right. Just give me a moment. I'll share my screen and then we'll proceed ahead with the discussions. All right, guys. So we are expecting a few more candidates to join in. Right. So once everyone joins in, we'll proceed ahead with the discussions. Right. Let's wait for around 2 to 3 minutes. All right, guys. So let's proceed ahead with the discussions. Right. So today we'll be learning the basics about Excel and how we can implement various statistical measures in statistics or in Excel. All right. Now, let's proceed ahead. So today we are going to discuss, let me give you a brief idea about we are going to discuss today, right? So we'll be discussing about basic arithmetic operations, right? Basic arithmetics, right? Starting from, let's say, addition, subtraction, multiplication, right? Followed by division, followed by BODMAS rule, right? Followed by, we'll also discuss about power functions, right? And proceeding ahead, we'll discuss about the exponential functions, right? And finally, we'll discuss about something called sum product. All right. So, guys, if any one of you wants to ask anything during the live session, you can simply post your doubt in the chat section. Right. So I'll be addressing your doubts one by one, but you have to be patient. Right. I'll be taking your doubts from time to time. So once you post your doubts, you have to wait for the response. All right, so this is the agenda for today. We'll be discussing about all these functions here. Right. So proceeding ahead, of course, with the addition. All right, so guys, I hope my voice is clearly audible to everyone. Right, you can simply raise your hands to confirm this, if my voice is clearly audible. All right, okay, so let's proceed ahead with the discussions of addition, right? How addition works and how we can basically add numbers in Excel, right? So we'll see all the implementations in Excel itself. So let's proceed ahead with the first topic, which is addition, right? And of course, I hope everyone is well aware of how to add numbers, right? And those who are using Excel in their day-to-day life, they must also be knowing how you can do it, or how you can basically add numbers between your how you can add numbers in Excel as well. All right. Right. So I hope everyone is well aware of the addition. Basically, we add up numbers, right? And when it comes to adding numbers, let's say there are two numbers, maybe 2 and 3, right? So how you can add these numbers is basically 2 plus 3. The same can be done in Excel, right? So how it's executed in Excel, we basically use equal to sign, and then we can apply any operation here. So let's say if I want to add two numbers, I'll simply write 2 plus 3, right? So this way, and also we have something called sum function in Excel, right? So sum function can also be used, and how sum is used is basically we'll simply use equal to followed by the name of the function, which is sum itself, and then we'll input the numbers that we want to add, which will be separated by a comma, right? So like this, 2, 3. So this way you'll get the output as 5, right? So let's see this implementation in Excel. Right. So let's say if we want to add 2 and 3, right? So how this can be done? I'll simply use equal to, right? I'll simply use equal to sign. I'll write 2 and plus followed by 3. So this will give me the output of this operation, which is 5. Right? If you simply write 2 plus 3, if you simply write 2 plus 3, you'll not get any output. It will be written as it is. Right? So you have to write in this way, which is any operation that you want to perform will start with equal to sign, right? And then you can proceed ahead with writing the sum, right? So this way you'll get the output. The second way is by using the sum function. Right, so by using the sum function, how this can be done is, let's say you simply call the name of the function, which is sum. And if you read the doc string here, it clearly says add all the numbers in a range of cells, right? So if we execute this, we simply have to pass the numbers here. So let's say I want to pass 2, 3. I'll close the bracket. This will give me the sum of 2 and 3, which is 5 again. Right? So this way it can be performed. Now, there is another way as well. Let's say 2 and 3 are in separate cells. I can give the reference of cells as well. So let's say here, if I use sum function, right, I can give the reference. Let's say this is D2. I'll simply click on this cell and the reference will be taken, followed by a comma. Then I have to pass the second number, right? So the number that I have to input is highlighted here. So this is the second number that I have to input, and this is D3, right? So if we close this bracket, and if I execute this, again, I'll get the output as 5. Because in Excel, the reference is given using the cell number, right? So for example, if you click on any cell, this is the cell number here, which is E10, right? I hope everyone is able to follow this, right? How sum can be performed or some operation can be performed. Now, let's say you have more than, let's say you have more than 2 numbers, let's say 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Right now, you want to add all of these numbers here. Also, you can use the sum function here, right? And you can pass these range of cells altogether. Let's say I'll simply select all these cells, and you can clearly see it is from D2 to D10, right? Colon basically represents the range, right? So right, so colon basically represents the range. So it is starting from D1 going up till D10. So every cell in between is taken into consideration, right? So right from D2, D3, D4, D5, D6, D7, D8, D9, D10, right? All of these cells are taken into consideration and you'll get the output. All right. So guys, if anyone is not able to hear me, it's advised to please rejoin the session. The session is being broadcasted very fine from my end, right? There are no audio or video related issues from my end. Right? So you can simply select the cell and press enter here. So you'll get the total sum here. So you can simply add up all these numbers to get the output, right? So let's say 10 plus 9 is 19 and 19 plus 8 is 27. 27 plus 7 is 34 plus 6 is 40 plus 5 is 45 plus 4 is 49 plus 3 is 52 and plus 2 is 54. All right. So, okay, how can you open Excel sheet? Simply, let's say, go to your start button in the Windows and simply search for Excel. You'll find an application called Microsoft Excel. Simply select that application and this sheet will be opened. All right. Now, so this way you can basically select the complete range of cells when you want to use the sum function, right? So these are basically two ways to, let's say, execute this. Okay. Now, let's say now proceeding ahead. So this is basically about the sum function. Right. Now, let's say if you want to calculate the subtraction, right? So subtraction is nothing but the all right. So guys, it's not advised to practice along with the live session. Simply follow the session and you can practice at your end once the session is uploaded in your LMS. All right. So these are basically the output that you will be getting. All right. And proceeding ahead. Proceeding ahead with the subtraction. In subtraction, what we basically do is we subtract one number from another, right? So how subtraction work is basically we'll subtract one number from another. Let's say again we have 2, 3. So we can subtract 3 is we can subtract 2 from 3. So this is how it's written, right? And we'll simply add equal to in Excel to get the output here, right? So let's see this in execution, right? So how this can be done is, let's say again we have 2 and 3 here. Now, if I want to subtract these numbers, I'll simply write it like this, which is equal to 3 minus 2. And once I press enter, I'll get the output of 3 minus 2, which is 1, right? Alternatively, you can subtract 3 from 2 as well. You'll get the output as minus 1, right? So if you subtract a lower number from a higher number, you'll get a positive result. If you subtract a smaller number, or if you subtract a larger number from a smaller number, you'll get the negative results. All right. Now let's proceed ahead with using the multiplication part. Right? Using the multiplication. And how multiplication is executed is basically we'll take the product of numbers. Right? So guys, is my voice breaking? Is my voice breaking? You can simply, let's say, raise your hands if you think my voice is breaking, or is it clearly audible? All right, so we are getting this mixed results, mixed output here. Okay. All right, so I believe if some of you are able to hear it clearly, so it's not breaking actually, right? All right, so we are getting this mixed uh, input from your end, right, regarding breaking and not breaking, right? So see, the internet connection is fine. I'm connected with a high-speed internet, right? So I believe it's so yes, I believe it's being broadcasted correctly, right? Okay, so some of you are asking about the subtraction part, just to give you this idea, right? Just to give you this idea, you cannot subtract a series of numbers, right? So you cannot subtract a series of numbers. Why is it so? Because since it is a subtraction, right? We are subtracting one number from another. Now, let's say if I have a series of numbers, right? So let's say, for example, like this, we have 8. All right. So if I have a series of numbers, how we are going to subtract, right? You can only subtract one number from another, right? You cannot subtract a series of numbers, right? So uh, which is why you cannot basically subtract a series of numbers or pass a range of cells as input while subtracting, right? And there is no inbuilt function for subtraction. This is the only reason, because there is no series of input that can be passed in, right? So which is why you're getting this. All right. So basically, I'll just mention this here, that there is no inbuilt function for subtraction in Excel. Not only in Excel, in any tool that you'll be using for analysis of data, there is no there's no function for Excel, no function for subtraction. There are functions to calculate the products, there are functions to calculate the sum of the numbers, right? But there is no function to define the subtraction for a range of values. And in a similar way, there is no function for division as well, right? Because in division as well, it is very similar to subtraction. You'll be dividing one number from the other, right? Which is why there is no inbuilt function for division and subtraction in any tool that you'll be using, be it Python or be it, let's say, Excel, or be it any other analytical tool that you'll be using, right? There is no formula or there is no inbuilt function for subtraction, right? Because passed, only two inputs can be passed while performing a subtraction, because you'll be subtracting one number from the other, right? And this is part of basic mathematics, all right? And formula for subtraction is, you simply write it like this: 2 minus 3, right? So if you have two numbers, let's say x is one of your numbers and y is one of your numbers, so x minus y, this is how you're going to write the subtraction part. All right, there's no formula for subtraction, or basically this is the formula for subtraction, right? It's a concept basically, right? There's no fixed formula, and this is how it's written: x minus y, right? Or a minus b. So let's say if x is 3 and let's say if x is 3 and y is 2, so you'll get this output as 1. All right, so proceeding ahead. So guys, I believe the voice is clearly audible now, right? I've switched my network as well. right? So I hope it's clearly audible now. Okay, all right. So next, moving ahead, we'll discuss about the multiplication part, right? And in multiplication, what we basically do is we'll basically multiply one number with another, right? So how it is used to be written in school mathematics is this way: A into B, right? Where we are multiplying A with B, right? In Excel, your X is replaced with asterisk. The star symbol that you see in your keyboard is basically used for calculating the products, right? So the star symbol that you're seeing in your keyboard, right? This is the symbol is called asterisk, right? This is the asterisk, and this is how it's represented. Right, so this is how it's represented, asterisk, right? So this is present at in your keyboard where 8 is present, right? You simply press shift and 8, you'll get the asterisk symbol. All right, so this is used as representation in any analytical tools, right? Because X is a character in keyboard, right? X is a character in keyboard. It's an alphabet. It's an alphabet in keyboard, which is why asterisk is used, right? So guys, basically subtraction where we did X minus Y, this is just the representation. X can hold any value, Y can hold any value. So let's say if my X is 3 and Y is 2 here. So if I do X minus Y, this is simply 3 minus 2, which is equals to 1, right? If X is, let's say if my X is 10 and Y is 5. So if I do X minus Y this time, 10 minus 5 will be 5. This is the output, right? This is just the representation. It's a representation, right? You'll find many times this kind of representation. This is just a representation. It's not like this is not something that is fixed or static, right? These things are dynamic. Any value X can hold, any value Y can hold, right? So based on the values held by X and Y, you'll calculate the output, right? So I hope this part is clear. So proceeding ahead with the multiplication, let's see the executions here. So here, basically, when you're calculating or doing the multiplication part, it's nothing but it is the extension of addition, right? How it is extension of addition? I'll show you. Right. So let's say if I multiply 5 with 2, right? If I multiply 5 with 2, right? So how I can write this as we are basically adding 5 2 times, right? Or vice versa, you can write it as you're adding 2 5 times, right? So 5 into 2 is basically 10, right? So if you add 5 2 times, 5 plus 5, this is also equals to 10. And if you add 2 5 times, which is 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, right? So 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 8, 8 plus, sorry, 2 plus 2 is 4, 4 plus 2 is 6, 6 plus 2 is 8, and 8 plus 2 is 10, right? So this is how multiplication can be segregated further, right? This is also called product. We are taking product of numbers, right? Multiplication in technical terms is referred to as product, right? So we are basically calculating the product of numbers, right? So let's see how this is used and how we can implement the same in Excel. Let's say again here we have numbers, right? And talking about the numbers, let's say we have again 2 and 3, right? So if you want to calculate the product here, I can simply write 2 multiplied by 3. Right? So 2 into 3 or 3 into 2 will basically give you the same result. If you execute this, you're getting 6 as the output, which is the multiplication of 2 and 3. Right? At the same time, you can, let's say, you can add 2 3 times. Like this, you'll end up getting 6. Or you can basically add 3 2 times. Right? So this will also give you the result as 6. Right? So basically, your multiplication is nothing but it is the extension of addition. Right? I hope everyone has learned about the tables in their school days, right? The table of 2, table of 3, table of 5, table of 6, etc. Right? So this is basically how tables are calculated. You're adding, let's say if you're calculating the table of 2, you're basically adding 2 to the given number of times. Right? So this is how it's done. And for calculating the product, we have a product function, right? Product function, if you read the doc string again, it clearly says multiplies all the number given as argument, right? So if I execute this, if I pass 2, 3 as input, it will give me the multiplication of 2 and 3, which is 2 into 3, which is 6. All right. So you can directly use the product function. Right. So this is how product function can be used here. Now, let's say all right, so this is how product function can be used. Now let's say I want to calculate the table of 2. So what can be done is, let's say if I write 1, 2, 3 here, if I select all these and then I drag later, these cells will go on increasing in the order. All right, like this. Now, let's say if I want to calculate, let me insert a cell above. Right, so here what I'll do is I'll calculate the table of 2. Right, so to calculate the table of 2, what I'll do is I'll simply use the product function here. Right, like this, I'll use the product function, and what I'll pass as input, the cell references. I want 2 into 1. This will give me 2. Right, in the similar way, I'll use the product function again. I'll use 2 into 2. So this will give me 4. Right, in the similar way, I'll use the product function again. What I'll pass here is 2 into 3. So this will give me 6. Right, in the similar way, you can calculate all the other cells. Now, the thing is, let's say if I select all of these, right, and if I drag and drop here, so you see all these cells are being filled out automatically, right? So what these cells have been filled out with, let's see, right? So it is taking A8, which is highlighted in red here, which is 4, and it's taking B7. B7 is this value here, which is 6, right? Now, we don't want this value to be taken. Every time we want 2 to be multiplied with all of these numbers. All right. Now, to calculate the tables or fixed reference, here what I'll do is I'll fix 2 here, right? So how I will fix 2? 2 is basically present in B4. So what I'll do is I'll simply fix this reference by adding a $sign before B and a $sign before 4. Right, so I'll add this $sign to fix this reference every time 2 will be taken. Right, every time 2 will be taken here. Now if I drag and drop here, this is calculating the table of 2. Right, if you click any one of these here, you can clearly see it's taking A8, which is highlighted in red here, which is 4, and it is taking B4, which is highlighted in blue here, which is 2 itself. All right. So this is how you can fix the reference. Otherwise, what will happen is, let's say from here, if you move one cell down, since this cell was taken, let me explain with this particular cell here, right? So let's say I'm calculating on this cell. So what I'll do is I'll multiply 2 with 1, right? So 2 is present in B4, right? B4, 2 is present and 1 is present in A5, right? So what I'll do is I'll simply use the product function here and I'll pass these numbers, let's say A5 and B4, right? So this value is calculated in B5. Output is calculated in B5, right? These are the cell references. I hope everyone is able to follow the cell reference. You can simply raise your hands if you're able to follow these cell references. What is B4, A5, B5? You can simply raise your hands to confirm this. Okay. All right. So here, what we are doing is we are basically taking these cell references. Now, what will happen is in B5, I've calculated 2 into 1, right? Now in B6, I want to calculate 2 into 2, right? In B6, I want to calculate 2 into 2. This is 6 here, and this is the B column. Hence, it becomes B6. This is B7, B8, and so on, right? So basically, if I move one cell down from here, what will happen is, since this cell was taken as reference into this cell, if I move one cell down, A5 will change to A6 and B4 will change to B5, right? And this product will be calculated, right? Now, if you move one cell down, then this will be calculated in B6, right? Now, if you again move one cell down from 4 to 6 here, 6 is present in B7, right? So in B7, what will happen is if you move one cell down, it has shifted from A5 to A6, and now it will shift from A6 to A7, all right, and B4 to B5 and B5 to B6. Now, what will happen? Let's see what is present in A7. So this is A7, this is 3. This is the perfect input that we want. But here it is taking B6. B6 is 4. So this will multiply 4 into 3, right? But we don't want to do this. We only want 2 to be multiplied every time, which is why what we'll do is we'll fix this B5. We'll fix B5 here. Sorry, we will fix B4, right? Since 2 is present in B4, so we'll fix B4 here so that every time B4 will be taken, every time B4 will be taken, and B4, 2 is present, right? In B4, 2 is present, hence we'll be able to calculate the table of 2, right? So how we'll fix this? We'll simply add a dollar sign, right? We'll simply add a dollar sign before B and before 4, right? So this will look like this, B$4. It will look like this. All right, B4. All right, so we'll basically fix B4 so that every time this 2 will be taken as input and every alternative number from this series of cells will be taken. All right, so dollar is basically dollar sign is used to fix a cell, fix a reference cell. All right, dollar is basically used for multiple purposes. One of the purpose here while using the formulas is to fix the reference cell. All right, otherwise dollar sign can be added to calculate dollar values. You have to format it as dollar in that case. All right, so yes, I've already informed yesterday itself. You can use Google spreadsheet as well, and this will be working exactly how it's working in Excel. All right, so basically one of you is asking why did we not use B5, right? Because it is also having 2 here. This is the output of some result. This is an output, right? You can see there's a formula for B5 here. right? But this value is static, right? Only 2 is present. This is not output of some operation, but all these are output of some operations, right? So even if you take this and, right? So if you take these cells, if values here will change, any reference these cells are putting into some other formula, that value will also change, right? So I'll show you, right? So for example, if you see here, only 2 is present, right? There's no formula present here. Only 2 is present as a static value. But this below 2 is the output of product function. It is the output of product function, right? Now, let's say if I use, let's say I use this cell to multiply with maybe 10, right? So this is 20 this time, right? Now, if I mistakenly, let's say if I calculated wrong value here, I'll also get wrong value here as well. All right. Now, let's say if I make this 2 as 4, this 20 will become 40. Right. If I make this, let's say 2, let's say if I make this 2 as 5, this 40 will become 50. Right. So you see how values are changing. So, which is why it is not advised, right, to use these references. And of course, with practice, you'll get this idea when to use references and when to use, right? So when to use references and when to use the static values, right? So if static value is present in another row, you have to use that particular row, right? This is needless to ask. Let's say if my static value is present here, I'll use this cell as a reference. This is just an example of demonstration that I'm showing you, right? All these things will be clear when you practice at your end, right? These things will be very clear when you practice at your end. All right. So in the similar way, let's say if I want to calculate the table of 3 this time, so what I'll do is I'll simply use the product function, all right, and I'll use C4, which is containing the value of 3, and then I'll use 1 because I want 3 into 1. But here, what I'll do is I'll fix this C4, and how I will fix? I'll simply add a dollar sign before C and before 4. Right? So this will basically fix this value. Every time 3 will be taken as input. Now I'll go here, I'll simply double click to calculate the complete table of 3. All right. In the similar way, you can calculate the table of 4 as well. Right. So let's say I'll use only the product function here. And here I'll take 4 as the reference. All right. I'll take 4 as a reference. I'll simply add dollar sign here. Right. Alternatively, you can use F4 to add dollar sign. Right. And then I'll take 1, which is contained in A1. Right. So this is giving me 4 as output. I'll simply go here, double click to flash fill. And this is how I can basically calculate the table of 4 as well. Right. So here I want to give you some homework. Right. And your homework is you have to calculate the tables from 1 to 50. Right. So table of 1, table of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on up till 50. Right. And you have to calculate not only till 10, you have to calculate till 20. All right. So just for everyone's reference, if you select all of these and try to drag and drop here, right, you can calculate up to 20. All right. So this is how your tables can easily be calculated using a single click of functions. If you use the function in the right way, you'll be able to calculate this. All right. So you cannot see basically, okay, one of you is saying, why are we putting these formulas again and again? When you'll analyze the data in Excel, you'll get this idea that even if you copy a formula right? Its references cells are also copied, right? So if the references cells are copied, let's say copy this formula, all right, let's say if I copy this formula and paste it here, right? So you can clearly see both of these references cells are also copied, but the only difference is since we are moving 1, 2, 3, we have basically 3 cells in between, right? So here it's taking A5 as input, right? It's taking A5 as input, but in this cell, it is taking E5 as input, right? I did not change anything. I simply copied and pasted. All right. So this is the difference. Once you practice at your end, you'll get a lot of clarification. These small doubts, you'll be able to rectify all by yourself. All right. And so just to let you know that you don't have to submit the homeworks. It is just for your self-evaluation, right? In case you have any issues, if you're facing any difficulties, do let me know in the next session. I'll explain you what part you're facing difficulties in. All right. This is purely for your self-evaluation, right? You'll be able to do this on your own. Right. So you'll have to calculate up to 20, right? Not only up to 10, you have to calculate the tables up to 20, right? And you have to calculate from 1 to 50, right? So we have calculated up till table of 4. You have to calculate up till table of 50, right? So I hope the product function part is clear to everyone. Right? So moving ahead, let's discuss about division. Although division is very it's a very vague part, right? Division is hardly used anywhere in the analysis, right? But still, let's use this division, right? So how division is used is basically we'll divide one number by another. Let's say we divide 3 by 2, right? So your backslash is basically used, right? Okay, sorry, this is front slash, right? So front slash is basically used to carry out the division, right? So if you execute this, we are getting 1.5, which is the correct output when you divide 3 with 2, right? So basically, division basically means, let's say if you're dividing A by B, so this basically indicates we are basically segregating A into B equal parts, right? We are segregating A into B equal parts. How is this? Let's say if I'm dividing 5 with 2, I have to divide 5 into 2 equal parts, right? So how 2 equal parts can be, how we'll get the output is 2.5 and 2.5, right? So these are the 2 equal parts into which we are dividing this 5. Right? In the similar way, let's say if you divide 6 by 3. So basically here we have to divide 6 into 3 equal parts, right? And when you divide 6 into 3 equal parts, this will be 2, 2, and 2, right? So these are the 3 equal parts of 6. All right. So this is how it's executed. All right. So this is basically about division. Now, let's say if all of these appear into a single equation, right? Let's say all of these appear into a single equation. How you are going to proceed ahead in that case? Which of these you'll calculate first and which of these you'll calculate later, right? So for example, let's say, okay, before we discuss that, let me discuss the power functions. All right, power functions. So what power function is? They are basically written, your power functions are basically written in the form of a raised to the power of b. All right, a raised to the power of b. This basically means you have to multiply a b times, right? So for example, let's say if the number is written in this way, 2 raised to the power of 3. So here you have to multiply 2 3 times. You have to multiply 2 3 times. All right. So output of 2 raised to the power of 3 can be written as 2 into 2 into 2. All right. So 2 into 2 is 4 and 4 into 2 is 8. So this is how you'll get the output. 2 raised to the power of 3 is equals to 8. All right. So this is how it's written. Let's take one more example. Let's say 3 raised to the power of 4. So here what you have to do is you have to multiply 3 4 times. All right. You have to multiply 3 4 times. So this is how it will be written: 3 into 3 into 3 into 3. Right. So 3 into 3 is 9. 9 into 3 is 27, and 27 into 3 is 81. So 3 raised to the power 4 is equals to 81. This is how it's written. Right. Now let's see the implementation of the same in Excel. Right, how we are going to implement. So we have something called as a power function. Right. So what power function does is it returns the result of a number raised to a power. Right. So let's see. If I want to calculate 2 raised to the power of 3, right? So you can clearly see the first input that is required. Right. The first input that is required is the number. Right. So if you want to calculate 2 raised to the power of 3, here the number is 2 and the power is 3. Right. So we'll simply write 2 comma 3. Right. Second input is power. First input is number. Second input is power. So this will basically calculate 2 raised to the power of 3, which is 8. All right. In the similar way, let's say if you want to calculate 3 raised to the power of 4. All right. 3 raised to the power of 4. So you simply use the power function again. And here in place of numbers, 3 will come because 3 raised to the power of 4. Right. So 3 is the number and 4 is the power. So you'll simply write number as 3 and power as 4. If you execute this, you'll get 81 as the output. Right. So this is how you're going to write the power functions in Excel. All right. Now, just to give you this idea, I hope a few of you must be aware of this, that any number raised to the power of 2, any number raised to the power of 2 is referred to as square of that number. Right. So let's say, for example, 2 raised to the power of 2, this is square of 2. Square of 2, right? 3 raised to the power of 2 is basically square of 3. 9 raised to the power of 2 is basically square of 9. Right. So I hope you must have heard this term square. Right. You can simply raise your hands if you have heard about this term, which is square. All right. Great. right? So any number raised to the power of 2 is basically referred to as square. In the similar way, any number raised to the power of 3, raised to power of 3 is referred to as cube of that number, right? So for example, let's say if you write 2 raised to the power of 3, this is cube of 3. This is cube of 3. The similar way, let's say 8 raised to the power of 3, this is cube of 8, right? So these are squares and cubes. Just to give you clarity on this, right? I've given you these examples. All right, so now basically your homework will be to calculate, right? Your homework will be you have to calculate the square and cubes of numbers from 1 to 100. Right? So this is your homework. You have to calculate the square and cubes of every number from 1 to 100. All right. So this will be your homework. All right, so please take 5 minutes of break. And once we come back, we'll proceed ahead with our discussions further. All right. So please take 5 minutes of break and then we'll proceed ahead. All right, guys. So let's proceed ahead. I hope everyone is able to follow the power functions. You can simply raise your hands to confirm this. Great. All right. So we'll be moving ahead. Here we have an extension or a special case in power function where your number will hold a constant value, and that value is E, right? Its value is 2.71. This value is a constant. This value is a constant, right? And E holds the value of 2.71. This is called exponential function. This is called exponentials. You'll be using these exponential functions very frequently, right? In data science and machine learning, right? So, which is why you, of course, need to know what exactly this is, right? So here, how we write a raised to the power of b in power functions, right? So here, a will be equals to e, right? A will be equals to e. So this will be written as e raised to the power of b. This is referred to as exponential functions, right? This is referred to as exponential function. And for better clarity, this is written as e raised to the power of x, all right? So x and b is just the representation, right? So this is the special case where e holds the value of 2.71. All right, and 2.71 is the constant value, right? And let's say if you write e raised to the power of x, here x can hold any value, like how in power functions a and b both can hold any value, right? Both a and b can hold any value. In the similar way, here a will be constant in exponential functions, which will be equals to 2.71, right? And x can hold any value. So this will be written as e raised to the power of x, right? This is the representation of exponential function. Right? So e will not hold any value, e will hold only this value, right? Which is why it is constant. If e can hold any value, it will be converted into power functions. Right? Here a is constant, which will hold the value of e, right? And the value of e is 2.71. It will not hold any other value. All right, this is a constant, right? Those who have studied, let's say in your 11th and 12th, those of you who took mathematics, they must be knowing there are multiple constants in mathematics, in physics, in chemistry, right? So in the similar way, this is a mathematical constant, right? And this holds the value of 2.71. All right. Now let's see how this can be implemented in Excel. Right. So in Excel, we have a special function for exponentials, which is called exp. Right. This clearly says it returns e raised to the power of a given number. Right. This clearly says it will basically returns e raised to the power of any number. So it only requires number, right? Because power is because the number is already given. All right. So here e can hold any value. Let's say e raised to the power of 2. Let's calculate e raised to the power of 1. Right. So e raised to the power of 1 is 2.718828. Right. So this is the number. And this is the value that you'll be getting as output. Right. Now let's proceed ahead and see the output of exp raised to the power of 2, right? So this is basically e raised to the power of 2. So this is nothing but the square of 2.71, right? Which is 7.389. Right. So it's since it's a non-recurring and non-recurring and non-repeating number, which is why you are seeing this. So we are getting basically up till 5 places of decimal. We are getting up till 5 places of decimal. This number is non-recurring and non-repeating. Right? Non-recurring basically means this is not terminating at 8. If you see up till, let's say, 10 places of decimal, you'll see some other values as well, like 8, 5, 6, 7, 9, like this, right? And non-repeating basically means the number is not repeating itself. So for example, let's say if you calculate the output of 1 by 3, right? This is just an example that we are taking. If you calculate the output of 1 by 3, this is nothing but 0.333333 and so on, right? So if you write up till 100 places of decimal, there will be 103 after the decimal. If you write up till 200 places of decimal, this will be up till the 3 will appear 200 times after the decimal, right? So basically here these numbers are repeating, right? These are repeating, hence this is repeating and it's non-recurring. Non-recurring basically means it is not going to end no matter how many times you are going to calculate this, or up till how many places of decimal you calculate this division, right? The output you'll get will be non-recurring, which is it will not terminate. This will not terminate. Right? This will not terminate, but it will repeat itself. 3 is repeating itself, which is why it is repeating, right? In the similar way, 2.71, the constant of E that we are calculating is non-repeating, which means that any of these numbers is not repeating itself, and it is non-recurring as well. Non-recurring basically means it is not going to terminate no matter how many places of decimal you calculate this. All right, this is just an extra piece of information. Otherwise, if you take the value of E as 2.71, this will also do. Right. So for example, let's say, I hope everyone has heard about the term called pi in mathematics, right? This is equals to 22 by 7, right? This is roughly equals to 3.14. This is roughly equal to 3.14, but this division is also non-repeating and non-recurring, right? Non-repeating and non-recurring, which basically means the numbers are not going to repeat itself and the number is not going to terminate no matter how many places of decimal you calculate this output. Right? In the similar way, we have E, which is non-repeating and non-recurring. All right. So I hope everyone is able to follow the exponential part as well. All right. So 0.333, this is 1 by 3 is all right. So let's proceed ahead. Now, let's say if you have all of these all together, right? How are you going to follow, or what exactly you are going to calculate first and what you're going to calculate later? One of these examples could be, let's say, if you have an equation given like this, 36 divided by 6 into 3 plus 2 raised to the power of 2 minus 8. Right. So here in this equation, we have division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, and the power function as well. Right. So what you are going to calculate first and what you are going to calculate later. right? Okay, so let's write this 8 as 3 plus 5 inside the bracket. So this will cover all the types of outputs, right? So here, if you have this kind of equation, we have a rule called BODMAS, right? We have a rule called BODMAS. So I just want to take the words for the students who have not heard about the BODMAS rule ever. You can simply raise your hands if you have never heard in your life about BODMAS. All right, all right. So we have a few handful of people, right? So let me discuss this. All right. So BODMAS is basically it's the rule that you're going to follow to calculate the output of this equation, right? Because let's say if only multiplication is present, you can directly multiply the numbers and calculate the output. If only addition is present, if only let's say addition is present, you can simply add the numbers all together and you can get the output. But what if combination of more than one operation is to be applied, right? In that case, what you're going to calculate first and what you're going to calculate later, right? So here we'll follow BODMAS. BODMAS basically stands for, let me write it like this, right? So B stands for bracket, right? And brackets are also called parentheses, right? B stands for bracket, O stands for order, or it also stands for off. Right? Now, D stands for division, M stands for multiplication, A stands for addition, and S stands for subtraction. All right, so from top to bottom, you're going to follow this approach like this. First, you're going to calculate the brackets or the output of brackets. Next, you're going to calculate the order functions, right? These order functions are nothing but the power functions, right? For example, like this, 2 raised to the power of 2. Parenthesis basically means bracket, right? The simple English, parenthesis basically means brackets, right? Moving on, third, you'll calculate the division. Fourth, you'll calculate the multiplication. Fifth, you're going to calculate the addition. And sixth, you're going to calculate the subtraction, right? So let's say if you follow this particular rule, let's see what output we are going to get from this, right? So here we have to calculate the output of bracket first. So this is the bracket that is present, right? So 3 plus 5 is 8. So let's write every other part as it is and only calculate the output of the bracket, which is 3 plus 5, which is 8. Right. Next, we are going to calculate the order functions. So this is the order function. Let's write again every other part of the equation as it is. And let's calculate the output of 2 raised to the power of 2, which is 4 minus 8. Next, we are going to calculate the division, right? So this is the division that is involved, right? So 36 divided by 6 is 6. Let's write every other part as it is. Next, we are going to calculate the multiplication. So 6 into 3 is 18. Let's write every other thing as it is. Now we are going to calculate the addition. So 18 plus 4 is 22 minus 8. Next, we are going to calculate the subtraction. So 22 minus 8 is nothing but 14. Right. So this is the output of this particular equation. This is equals to 14. This is how you're going to follow the BODMAS rule to calculate the output of the equation where more than one operation is to be applied. All right. If you follow any other approach, you'll end up getting some other answer, which will, of course, be wrong. Right. You'll get only one correct answer for the BODMAS if you follow the BODMAS rule. right? And this is the correct answer that you are getting, right? So let's see how we can write this in Excel. All right, I'll also show you how you can write this using the functions of Excel. All right, so let me write this equation only. And the equation that I wrote was 36 divided by 6 into 3 plus 2 raised to the power of 2 minus 3 plus 5 inside bracket, right? We are going to calculate the output of this, right? So let's see how output can be calculated for this. Here, we'll write, of course, since we are going to perform a way of, we are going to perform some operations, right? So we'll use equal to sign. We'll write 36 divided by 6, right? 36 divided by 6, followed by multiplied by 3, right? Plus 2 raised to the power of 2. So this is written as 2 raised to the power of 2, all right? Followed by minus, we'll open the parenthesis. This is parenthesis. This is also called bracket, right? So 3 plus 5. We'll close this parenthesis and let's see the output. We are getting it 14, right? This is exactly what we calculated, right? So let me just copy this and let me paste it here without the equal to sign so that everyone will be able to see this equation. Now, what we are going to do is I'm simply going to calculate the outputs using the functions of Excel, right? So how we are going to use the functions of Excel, right? So for example, let's do it one by one. Right? Let's do it one by one. So basically, let's say if you guys remember in the addition itself, we discussed, right? In addition itself, we discussed how numbers can be written. Let's say if you want to add 3 plus 2, you can simply, instead of writing 3 plus 2, you can directly use the sum function and replace this plus with a comma and put the numbers as it is. So 2, 3 like this, right? In the similar way, let's say if you want to calculate 2 into 3, what can be done is you simply use the product function, right? And simply pass in the numbers like this, 2, 3. This is exactly what we are going to do and modify this particular equation by using the functions of Excel. Right, so let's see how this can be done. Right, so what I'll do here is so what I'm going to do here is this is the addition part that I need to execute. So what I'll do, I'll simply use the sum function here, all right, and I'll simply remove the plus sign and replace it with a comma. Let's see if we are getting the same output. So yes, we are getting the same output, right? So we have replaced this 3 plus 5 using the sum function of Excel. All right. Now, next is I have to modify this 2 raised to the power of 2. How I'll do this? I'll simply use the power function here, right? So I'll simply use the power function here and I'll open the bracket and close the bracket here, right? So this will execute my power function and I'll simply remove the sign and replace it with comma. So let's see, we are now also we are getting the same output, which means whatever replacement we are doing is correct as per the syntax that is followed in Excel, right? In the similar way, the next thing that we are going to do is we'll replace this multiplication using the product function, right? So how we are going to do that?
I'll simply use the product function here. I'll open the bracket here and close the bracket here, right? I'll replace this multiplication sign using a comma, right? So this division will be calculated first. Its output will be 6. All right. And this 6 will be multiplied with 3 later. So let's execute this and see. Again, we are getting 14 as the output, which means every operation that we are performing or the replacement that we are doing is correct. All right. Now, the last thing that needs to be done is we'll replace this plus sign with the sum function. How we are going to do this is I'll simply use sum function here. All right. So this plus basically separates this part of the equation, and it also separates this part of the equation, right? So this is first part and this is the second part. All right, so I can use sum function here. I'll open the bracket here and I'll close it towards the end, and I'll replace this plus sign with a comma. Right, so let's execute this, and again we are getting 14 as the output, which means the sum function that we have applied on the complete equation is correct. All right, so this is how basically you can simply perform the output. All right, you can replace all these mathematical signs from the functions of Excel. All right, so this will help you to use the functions of Excel in the most efficient way, right? And the functions of Excel can be embedded one into another, which basically means you can embed one function of Excel into another. For example, here we have used product function inside the sum function, right? We have used the power function inside the sum function, right? We have used another sum function inside the sum function. So yes, this can be done, and this is completely feasible and correct. Right? So this is how you can simply use the functions of Excel to execute any equation or any output, right? We'll see a realistic example of the same in the next session, right? Where you'll get to know, right? Where you'll get to know that what is the actual implementation of this, right? So for example, let's say if you want to calculate the GST, if you want to calculate the price of any product after tax is applied on it, right? So the base price of the product is completely different, and the tax bracket into which that product falls into is completely different, right? So for example, let's say you want to calculate the price of maybe a mobile phone, right? So the base price is different, and the tax bracket into which the mobile phone falls into is different, right? So you have to simply multiply the numbers, calculate the tax, and then add that tax into the base price to get the maximum retail price of the product, right? So this is one of the examples here that can be used. All right, okay, one of you is asking why we have used this sum function before the product function here. All right, so I believe this is clearly explained, right? We are basically replacing, I'll explain you in this part. We are replacing this plus sign with the product function, and this plus sign basically separates this part of the equation and this part of the equation, right? Which is why a sum function can be used between both of these, right? We'll replace the plus sign with a comma, right? Which is why we are basically using the sum as a wrapped up function between this is the first part of the sum function, and this is the second part of the sum function, right? And the sum function is applied overall to the complete equation, right? So this is how it can easily be calculated, and you'll get the relevant outputs. All right. So, okay, one of you is asking, is it required to change the signs? Yes. Basically, why we are doing this is to make use of the functions of Excel to the maximum possible limit, right? And this will automate your tasks very much. Otherwise, if you are going to write it in this way, right? If you are going to write it in this way, it is going to increase the manual work that you need to put in, because whenever you'll be working on the analysis of data, it is not let's say 100 rows of data that you'll be analyzing. It will be at least let's say tens of thousands of rows that you'll be analyzing at once, right? So if any operation that you want to perform on a particular let's say on a particular column, right? So that particular operation can easily be applied using the functions of Excel, right? Which is why we are discussing this in detail. All right. So, okay, one of you just correctly identified what about this part, negative of sum of 3 and 5. As I've already discussed, there is no inbuilt function for subtraction and division, which is why the division part is written as it is, and the subtraction part is also written as it is. There is no inbuilt function for division and subtraction. There's no function for division and subtraction in any analytical tool that you'll be using, be it Excel, be it Python, be it SQL, or any other tool, be it let's say you'll be analyzing on Power BI or Tableau, right? There's no aggregation function that is defined for subtraction and division, because this is one-time task that will be done, right? You cannot divide a number repeatedly, right? Because it will make sense, right? Dividing and subtraction is a operation that will be applied only once, right? For example, let's say you can add numbers in a series, right? You can add 10 numbers all together, but you cannot subtract 10 numbers all together, because you need to mention what number needs to be subtracted from what number, right? So once you do this at your end, you'll be able to understand this in a better way. All right. Now, moving ahead, let's take one more example here. Right. Let's take one more example. Let me just let me create a data set, and I'll explain you about that data. So this is the data. Right. Let me walk you through what this data set is. This is just a data set created manually. Right. So for example, let's say there are a list of students, right? These are the list of students. Right. So what is the shortcut to call out the functions like sum, product, and power function? There is no shortcut to call out the functions. You have to write the name of the function and then you can execute it. All right. There's no shortcut to call out functions. You simply have to write equal to sign and followed by the name of the function. Right. So, okay, one of you is asking if we are not using multiplication, in that condition, can we use products or simple, put division simple? Yes, that is exactly what we did. Right. We have simply written the division part as it is. For example, let's say 36 divided by 6. This number is written as it is. Right. In the similar way, subtraction of the power function and the sum function is written as it is using the minus sign in between, right? Because there is no inbuilt function that is different. All right. Now moving ahead. So here, let me explain you. So this is basically the name of these students. These are the marks scored by these students in mathematics, in physics, in chemistry. All right. And the overall total, basically overall total is all these marks is out of 100. So 72 out of 100, 88 out of 100, 89 out of 100, right? So 100 plus 100 plus 100 is the overall total, which is 300. All right. So these are the overall total marks. Every subject is evaluated out of 100 marks. So all these marks for the students are represented using out of 100. All right. And this is the summation of overall numbers. Right. Now, let's say if we want to calculate, I hope everyone has heard about the term called percentage, right? Can anyone please raise hands if you've never heard about the term percent? You can simply raise your hands if you have never heard about the term percent. Okay, I can see a few of you, right? So percent is basically the fraction of the whole, right? So for example, let's say when I say, I hope everyone must have seen the sale on various brands, right? The sales are like as follows. For example, all the products are on 50% off. What does basically mean? Can anyone write what this exactly means? If let's say the brand is selling out their products at 50% discount, what does this basically mean? Okay. Right. Right. So this basically means 50% basically means half of the whole amount. Right. This is half of the whole price of the product. Right. 50% basically means how this is written is this is written like this. 50% basically means it's written like this 50 by 100 into 100. Right. Okay. So this is basically written as 50 by 100. All right. And 50 by 100 is nothing but 50 into 2 is 100. So this is 1 by 2. Right. So which is why this is half the price of the whole price. In the similar way, let's say if the brand is selling out at 90% off, this basically means this is 90 by 100. All right. So this basically means, let's say here, in case of 50%, if the MRP of the product, let's say if MRP of the product is 1000, let's say 1000 INR, right? Indian rupee. If the price is 1000, so 50% discount basically means it will be sold out at half the price, which is 1000 into 1 by 2, which is 500, right? So any product that you're getting at MRP of 1000, you can, in the sale of 50% off, you can buy the same product at 500 rupees. All right. So yes, this is exactly equals to, let's say, 50 by 100 into the price of the product. Let's say 1000, right? So this is 100. So this is 500. All right. So this is how it's calculated. Let's say the same product is selling out at 90% off, right? Let's say you got a lottery and you're getting the products at 90% off. Let's say some clearance sale is going on. The brand wants to clear its stocks, right, before the season ends. So they're selling out their products at 90% off. This basically means 90 by 100, and this will be multiplied with the MRP of the price. or MRP of the product, which is 1000. You can simply, let's say 100 into 10 is 1000, right? So this is basically, they are giving a discount of 900 rupees on the MRP of 1000, right? So basically you can buy the same product at 1000 minus 900, which is 100 rupees only. This is the final price for 90% off. Right? They're giving you the discount of 900 on the MRP of 1000. Right? So you can buy the same product at 100 rupees. Right? So this is how percentages are calculated. I hope everyone must have got the percentage only throughout their school days. Right? Everyone is of that era of age where you got percentage in your school days, and nowadays of course they are getting grades, right? The students are getting grades, but in your school days, of course, I presume that everyone has got percentage, right? So maybe let's see, let's take the votes. Anyone who got grades throughout their school days, you can simply raise your hands. If you never got percentage in your results, you got only grades throughout your school days. Okay, so strangely, I'm getting a few hands raised. Maybe you fall into that era where the grades were awarded instead of percentage in your school days, right? So let me just give you this example, since you did not get percentage any time in your school days. Let me give you this idea how percentage is calculated. So what we are going to do is, we are going to calculate the percentage of these students out of 300, right? Whatever marks they have scored, will basically add all of these marks, and then we'll divide it by 300 and multiply it by with 100 to get the percentage, right? So how, let's say, percentage is calculated. All right. So how percentage is calculated? Let's take one example. Let me show you one example on pen and paper, right? So let's say the student named John, right? So John scored 72 marks in maths, 88 marks in physics, and 89 marks in chemistry, right? So we need to calculate what percentage of score did he score in all combined of physics, maths, and chemistry. All right. So basically, if the brand is sending out at 10% or 15% off, you can calculate the final price after that. Right. So, all right. So talking about the student, we'll simply add up the numbers all together. So let's say the student scored 72 in physics, 72 in mathematics, 88 in physics, and 89 in chemistry, right? So what is the overall marks secured by the student? So 8 plus 2 is 10 and plus 1 is 19, right? 1 is carried and 8 3 is 24. So the total marks that is scored out of 300 by the student is 249. All right. Now to calculate the percentage here, what we'll do, we'll simply sum up the total marks scored by the student. We'll divide this by the total overall total, which is 300, right? And we'll multiply this with 100, and you'll get the output in percentage, right? So if we do the maths, the output that we'll be getting is 83%, right? So the student has scored 83% marks combined of all three subjects. All right. So let's see how this can be done in Excel. So here we'll calculate the marks scored by the student. Right. So let's say I'll simply write marks scored by the student. And what we need to do is we have to add marks in physics, mathematics, and chemistry. Right. So how this can be done? We'll simply use the sum function and we'll pass all these three as input. B2 to D2. Right. So B2 to D2 basically means B2, C2, and D2. If you press enter here, we are getting 249 as the output. So this is the marks scored by the student. Right? If I double click here, I'll get marks scored by all the students. So Aman has scored 180, Arjun has scored 289, Akash has scored 209, Vinita has scored 221, and Stella has scored 212 total marks. All right. Now here we'll calculate the percentage. All right. So how percentage can be calculated? We'll simply divide this number with the overall total and multiply this by 100. Right. So this is 83%. And we get double click here to get the relevant percent of everyone. Right. So the highest mark scored by any student in this list is by Arjun, which is 96.3%. All right. So this is how it can be done. All of these, since we have used or we have consumed two cells to get this output, first is we calculated the marks scored by the student, and in the second cell, we calculated the percentage. Now, both of these operations can be done in a single cell also. How this can be done? We'll simply use, let's say I'll simply write single cell percentage calculation, right? So single cell percentage, I'll simply, just give me a moment. Let me format this. Okay. All right, so this is single cell execution. How it can be done? First, we need to calculate the sum of all these numbers. So all these can be calculated using the sum function, right? You can directly use the sum of all of these three. Close this bracket. So sum has been calculated. Now divide this by 300, right? You'll get the output in fraction, which is 0.83, right? In the similar way, we'll calculate it for everyone, right? Now what we'll do is we'll simply select all these cells and we'll go to home. And now you see this number tab here. In this number tab, you simply change this general, right? Number format general to percentage. So this is the percentage sign, right? You can simply format it as percent. If you click here, this is the percent that you are getting, right? These are the percentage of marks these students have scored. Right? So I hope this part is clear to everyone. You can simply raise your hands to confirm, especially the ones who did not get percent in their school days. I hope you guys are now clear with the with how percentage can easily be calculated. All right. Okay, so I'll just repeat this one more time. All right, so how this can be executed is basically, see, there are two things that needs to be calculated, right? The first is, there are two things that needs to be calculated. You have to calculate the sum of marks scored by the student divided by, this is divided by overall total, and you have to multiply this by 100. All right, all these three will be executed in one single cell. Sum of marks, how it can be calculated? We can simply use the sum function, pass in the marks scored in maths, marks scored in physics, and marks scored in chemistry, right? Then you can finally divide this by the overall total, right? And finally multiply this by 100. All right. So this is how it can be calculated. So this is exactly what we have done. We used the sum function, passed in the list of marks scored by any student, right? So let's say for, since we are calculating it for John, we'll be writing in the same row. We are using this, right? So we'll first calculate the sum of the outputs. Second is we'll divide it by the overall total. And instead of multiplying it by 100, we can format this particular cell as percent, right? So this is an additional feature. Formatting is one of the, like, formatting. I would like every one of you to go through the formatting in Excel. Simply go through the official documentation how formatting can be done, right? You can format any, let's say, given cell as maybe date. You can format cells as percent. You can format cells as currency. You can format cells as, there are various options, right? You can simply explore the same on the number tab that I've just shown you, right? Simply go to home here, right? And under this numbers section, you'll see a lot of formatting. Accounting can be done, currency can be applied, right? Numbers can be applied. You can have a short date, you can have a long date like this, right? Or you can have time, you can have percentage, you can have fractions, you can have scientific formatting, you can format it as text, right? And there are multiple other formattings as well. Simply explore this, change the formatting of these one by one, and you'll get the idea how formatting is done in Excel. All right. And for more references, simply explore the blogs on Towards Data Science and Medium that we discussed in yesterday's session, right? How you can do. Simply write formatting in Excel followed by the Towards Data Science, right? On Google, you'll get the output, right? Simply read 2-3 blogs related to formatting of numbers in Excel, and you'll have a better idea. Practice a few things at your end, and you'll get the detailed idea about it, right? So let's see how this is done. So first we calculated the sum of the numbers scored by the student. Then we divided the number by overall total, which is 300, right? And finally, once you execute this, right, let's change the formatting first so that I can explain you. I'll simply move it to general format, right? So this is how output is, this is how you'll get the output, right? Sum of the numbers divided by the total number scored. And then you can finally format it as percent. Simply go to home and change this general to percentage, right? You'll get output like this. All right. So this is how formatting can be done. And you'll get the percentage of the marks scored by the students. All right. So yes, guys, this is all that we wanted to discuss today, right? And since if I start a new topic, I will not be able to finish it in 5 minutes, which is why we'll start with a new topic in the next session, right? So with percentage, we are wrapping up this particular session. We'll discuss about the sum product function in the next session, right? It is a bit tricky, but easy to understand. All right. So start with the discussion with sum product itself. All right. So meanwhile, throughout the week, go through this particular session, practice at your end, create some extra, number of rows in this particular data. We have up till row number 7, create 3-4 more rows, right? Fill the numbers as per your convenience, right? Simply add some random numbers here and try to calculate the percentage of these students. All right. So how to apply the power sign in Excel? power sign is basically, see, if you want to apply it manually, it is this sign in your keyboard, right? This is present at number 6 in the keyboard, right? And number 6 is between T and Y, alphabet T and Y. It is between T and Y, right? This sign is present. Simply press shift and shift plus 6, right? You need to explore the complete keyboard. I'll give you a homework, right? I'll simply give you a homework. Open Notepad in your system, right? Open Notepad in your system and write all the alphabets, write all alphabets, or simply execute, write all keys, keyboard keys, right? Keyboard keys, right? Write it without shift and write it along with shift. You'll get the idea how the numbers are being different, right? You must have seen in the numbers, especially, there are two signs present, let's say 3 and hashtag, right? In the similar way, you have, let's say, 6 and this sign. All right. So yes, guys, this is the homework for you. And we are wrapping up this session with this. All right. So yes, thank you everyone for joining this session. And I'll see you in the next weekend on the same time. All right. So till then, keep practicing, right? And thank you everyone. You have a good day. And of course, good night, everyone. I'll see you on the next weekend, right? So thank you and good night.